It's
Yeah.
a bit of a hell of a time.
I mean, brought by the minister.
I don't know.
Well, I like it.
It's what commercial use do you use? What busy that road is. What was the food? Locked together in one.
Thanks very much.
Yeah.
To the meeting of the Investment Board on the 12th of February 2024. A number of items on the agenda to deal with this morning. I'll just quickly go around the room so we know who's present. I'm Councillor Bob Slay, I'm Deputy Mayor and therefore I chair the Investment Board.
Services. Finance for PCA. Doing Stockley, Head of Legal Services.
Steve Clark, Cabinet Member for Finance and Legal, Dudley Council.
Cam Grinsell, Deputy Leader, Solihull Council.
Matt Dormer, Leader at Redditch Borough Council.
Martin Yardley, Combined Authority.
Hannah Jones, Development Manager for Combined Authority.
Nigel Ford, Head of Property and Strategic Assets, Combined Authority.
Rob Lemon, WMCA Housing Property Regen team. John Godfrey, WMCA Housing Property Regen.
Tony Burks, I'm Construction and Labour District Council.
Councillor George Coucher, Portfolio Holder for Planning and Economic Development at Stratford District Council.
Just so everyone can hear on the internet as well. Councillor Jim O'Boyle from Coventry City Council.
Gary Taylor, representing GBS Lab. Chris Burden, Cabinet Member for Children and Young People at City of Wolverhampton.
Nick Oakley, Head of Property Finance, West Midlands Development Capital.
Sue Summers, West Midlands Development Capital.
Councillor Mike Bird, Leader of Walsall Council.
Councillor Pete Hughes, Cabinet Member for Regen and the Combined Authority from Stanwell.
Carl Pearson, WMCA Finance Team.
Ian Martin, WMCA Commercial Activities and Investment. Thank you. On the screen, want to identify who you are? Anyone who wishes to do that for us?
Good morning. I can start. Good morning, everyone. Cassandra Polyzoides. I'm the Deputy Director for City Development for the City of Wolverhampton Council.
Good morning, everyone. Councillor Sharon Thompson, Deputy Leader, Birmingham City Council.
Anyone else? No. People on the screen, if you just raise your hand as you normally do if you want to make a contribution to any of the debates. That's fine. We'll therefore work through the agenda. So can I have apologies for absence, please?
Yes, Chair, we have apologies for absence from Councillor Simpkins, but we have Councillor Burden representing him here. Thank you.
Any other apologies from the room or on the screen? No. Councillor Burden, welcome. Okay, notification steps has been done. Declarations of interest. If any members are reminded of the need to declare any disposable pecuniary interest they have in item being discussed during the course of the meeting. In addition, the receipt of any gift or hospitality should be declared where the value of it was thought to have exceeded £25 for gifts or £40 hospitality. I don't think anyone's indicating, so we'll take that as read. The minutes of the 15th of January have been previously issued. I'm taking those as a true record. Does anyone wish any amendments to be made to the minutes? Not indicated in the room, not indicated on the screen. Two items. Adderley Street was deferred at the last meeting and is represented here today. The issues raised have been addressed in the paper in the pack. Hopefully we can deal with that accordingly. And Pipe Hall in December, Councillor Simpkins requested in December's board that an update on Pipe Hall be given by the housing team. This is contained in the pack this month and housing will present accordingly. So I'm taking those minutes as being the correct record. We'll therefore move on to the standing items, business for noting. These are the investment for dashboard, Brownfield Land Property Development Fund dashboard, and Westminster Combined Authority Residential Investment Fund RIP dashboard. And I'll hand over to Nick if you wish to raise anything in the public element to the meeting.
Yes, thank you, Chair. So as usual, items 5, 6 and 7 are the WMDC dashboards, public information dashboards on the fund various funds that we manage. I will provide an update under private session unless there are any questions.
Any questions on the public elements of those dashboards? Not indicated. That's fine. Thank you. We now have a paper that was issued. It's not on the agenda. We can therefore notice and take any questions on it. And I'm going to ask Ian to give us a slight update on the investment programme. But I'm afraid we can't actually do anything other than take a briefing off Ian. It was an administrative error, which has now been corrected. It won't happen again. So thank you. Ian, do you want to just give us a summary of where we are, please?
Thank you, Chair. My apologies. It wasn't even an administrative error. I've learned something about governance that if we don't know something is on the agenda, it can't appear even if the papers arrive late. And the papers were sent out to you on Monday and circulated. So my apologies. Nothing particularly sinister in that, as you probably noted if you read through the papers. So the funding commitment slight decrease back to £853.7 million. That's as a result of a change request for one of the SMBC projects, the UKC Hub and Connectivity Programme. Reduced the funding by 500k, but that still remains ring-fenced under the overall UKC SMBC allocation. So no real change to that. The £871 million available to the investment programme does remain fully utilised by the annual contributions as approved by the WMCA board. There was quite a jump in terms of the drawings, costs incurred under the programme to the 31st of December. So we're now at £598.3 million, which was up from the 549.7 30th of September. That's the St Mary's scheme start overall. Nearly a £50 million increase. It's worth noting that we are still complying with government's requirement for an interim gateway review. So thanks to officers at your various authorities that are assisting with doing that, although the timescales from a government point of view seem to be slipping on the interim. But we are keeping pace, and that's it for investment programme. Would you like me to move on to the dashboard?
Yeah, we'll take the dashboards there as well.
So you'll notice on the dashboard we've had an increase in the number of red status projects, those that are forecasting completion beyond the approved date, all of which have been asked for change requests. There is not known to be any material increase in fund requirements on those. It's just the fact that projects are slipped and are taking a lot longer to previously forecast. The exceptions possibly being TFWM projects, where there is quite a lot of involved work going on at the moment, refreshing cases on both Metro and rail packages 1 and 2. We are aware those will be forthcoming.
Thank you. Any points in which to clarify? Information given, not indicated in the room, on the screen. So therefore, that's that item through. Thank you. We now move to business item for consideration. This is a 5 into work individual placement and support in primary care. This is a change request. I have Tato, I got your name again. So are you actually presenting, or is Claire Hatton presenting? I'm not quite sure.
I'm presenting, Chair.
Okay, over to you then. The paper's before us. It's item 8 on the agenda, and we have the documents with us. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you all. Morning all. So the change request that we're presenting here today for the Thrive Into Work programme, if I just take you through the background. So the primary reason for this is the fact that at the point at which Thrive Into Work was set up, there was no SAF process. So that was back in 2018. It was set up as a pilot, but funded by the Work and Health Unit, which sits between DWP and DHSC. Since the close of the trial and the start of the current programme, we ran a successful post-service trial, we call it, and both of those, the pilot version and the post-trial service, involved the Black Country CCG, as was then, as the budget holder. The most significant change that's happening really now since March 2023, so this new financial year, is that arrangement has changed. So DWP and DHSC have no longer stipulated that we cannot hold the budget. So we are now funded from a national pot that's referred to as IPSPC, which is Individual Placement and Support, which is the name of the employment support model that Thriving to Work operates in primary care. So IPSPC altogether. And there's a number of sites across the country. Now, in this current guise, we're able to hold the finances ourselves, and so the ICB is no longer involved at this level. So that's the key change. We have a great grant agreement with DWP, and we've issued back-to-back grant agreements with our the service providers, who we refer to as activity delivery partners. The current contract value is 7.9 million, and that runs to that. So that's from April 2023 to the end of March 2025. Through that, we're aiming to support 3,474 people with health barriers to employment. We're hoping for a conversion rate of 40%, so should result in 1,570 positive employment outcomes. There are a few other changes between the post-trial service and the current service, which is about kind of geography. So we now extend to Warwickshire, a focus on a specialist pathway around neurodiversity. We had previously had two other specialist pathways that are no longer extended, and there are some kind of finer details about the contract that we've passed on to our delivery partners. We've also voluntarily, despite there not being a kind of SAF process at the very beginning, we have voluntarily now taken ourselves through a SAF health check. We've scored green amber on that. The recommendations from that were ones that were known to us anyway, but around kind of internal processes and resourcing, but most significantly around the governance for this. So to say that previously in the trial period we had a governance board specifically that ran as a programme board for this programme, we are, given the internal changes across the organisation, that for example the DSO in our directorate, we are now pitching for a kind of governance structure that's around an advisory group on health, employment and labour market participation, which will have reporting lines into the wellbeing board and the skills board. So those are the key changes. In terms of finances, there's a note there about kind of risk to potential surplus or budget gap. That's being managed from the fact, that's arisen from the fact that DWP have issued us with a slight change in the rules from their contract, which is that we cannot carry forward from year one into year two what was proposed as our budget. We're managing that with them. I would say it's a fast changing process. Just late last week, we've had another kind of reinterpretation of the rules that means we might be back to where we were previously, which is that we can carry forward. But essentially, we are working with our programme budget that are not related to delivery spends, so as to be able to make sure that we cover everything that we need, and as well as committed costs that follow into year two, but we can claim in year one because they're committed, if that makes sense. I hope that makes sense. So that's a general overview. I'm very happy to take any questions.
Thank you. I'll open it to questions in a moment. Can I just confirm our role is to ensure that it is compliant with the governance arrangements in the single assurance framework? That's in essence what we're actually being asked to deal with here, which is subject to the change request. Councillor Vinson.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, it's just clarity around that really, because you mentioned both committees, boards within the combined authority, whether it's health or whether it's skills and employment. So is it the health board that will hold the ring on this? Because you're reporting to both boards, but who ultimately holds the ring? You mentioned about the ICB not being involved. Now, obviously, you're delivering this with primary care. So you're going to arrange a panel? Are you going to have, for instance, a director of primary care involved? Because that runs through the ICB, so I just want to see what the actual connection is.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, so if I can respond. So when I say the ICB is not involved, I just mean in terms of the operational side of things, in terms of how they used to hold the budget. So those finances come directly to us now. They are still very much involved as key stakeholders. For example, the chair of the CEO of Black Country ICB has been invited into the new form of governance that I described, the health and employment and labour market participation group. That is still in the throes of being set up. So what that, in terms of your question about who's ultimately holding the ring, that's still being worked out in terms of whether, you know, the kind of, as we see it, it's an even process between the Wellbeing Board and the Skills Board.
Can I just clarify though, we're talking about private care boundaries, not local government boundaries. I'm just trying to get my head clear on actually the governance is clearly defined. I think that's what the essence of Councillor Grinstall's question is, because the ICB clearly have a role in this because it's on primary care boundary basis.
Yes, and they will have a role in it.
Yeah. I'll let Councillor Grinstall come back.
Yeah, and that's the reason why I asked about is somebody as senior as a director of primary care within the ICB involved, because this is about delivering within primary care, so they would hold the overarching string on this. If you want to deliver it in primary care, you need the director of primary care involved so it can be delivered and targeted in the right way. You're trying to get to some of the most deprived areas, aren't you? So we need to ensure those areas are being covered and that we're getting into those surgeries.
Yeah, absolutely. So we are also running a pilot along within Thriving to Work around the GP Fit Note, and we're working directly with GP surgeries across parts of the Black Country for that, so that I know that there is involvement with the Director of Primary Care in that, but because we don't have a governance structure that's in place yet, I can't say that there is a Director of Primary Care on a board yet, so I wouldn't want to mislead, but I would say that they're involved, the delivery partner in the Black Country in the main. So there's two activity delivery partners. One is the Shaw Trust and one is the Black Country Healthcare Foundation Trust. Both partners have been working on this programme for years, and so have that kind of embeddedness in the primary care sector. And as I said, we are working closely with and have continued our relationship with the ICB from CCG days into the kind of the advisory part of how this is working and set up. Okay. But to respond, so I can definitely ensure that we involve the Director of Primary Care into the board for the board that is yet to be formed, if that helps.
Yeah, I mean, in essence, we take a greater role. That's what we're saying that we previously have within this. That's the important point. Are you okay with that?
Yeah, and clearly it's wider than just the Black Country.
Yeah.
I would want the director to have oversight. I'm not saying that they have to be on the board, but they have to be. You have to ensure that you are working with them so that we're delivering it in the right way.
Absolutely, we'll take that on board. Thank you.
I'll take Councillor O'Boyle, please.
Yeah, thank you, Bob. Notwithstanding the recommendations to identify, but particularly supporting ongoing delivery of the DWP grant funded delivery phase, I'll just ask, what assurance have you got that the providers that are working on this will work more closely with local authority employment and skills teams to help shape the focus of the activities? And the reason why I ask that is because in Coventry, for example, we've got a job shop, and they do unbelievably amazing work that actually they find people that just will not engage, just cannot get on with DWP. So I just want some assurances on.
Yeah, so this I think comes to the kind of future evolution actually of the programme. So we have obviously So we've had some internal transition. Sorry, I didn't mean to say obviously. We've had some internal transition where our health and communities team that the Thriving to Work originally reported to is now part of Employment and Skills, the wider Employment Skills Health and Communities Directorate. And I think through that move, we've done a lot to kind of ensure that there's greater connectivity between the Thriving to Work programme and local authority employment and skills officers. So everyone's kind of aware of the programme. But also, I think this has been nationally identified as a bit of an issue. So that's part of the motivation between what the Workwell partnership that's now kind of being bid for. So Workwell currently it's only a kind of, there was a submission of expressions of interest about a month ago, and it will start in April time for those that have been successful. There's 15 Vanguard sites due across the country, and we're hoping at least one West Midlands, if not two West Midlands bids will be won. The point of that is so that health really has more of a kind of one front door to refer into when it comes to those people that need employment support but have health barriers to work. So that the intention is that there'll be more join up across the system, so that there is that kind of connectivity really between the different services, because I think as things currently stand, there's a number of different services and there's not a huge amount of kind of awareness of the ins and outs of all of them. So if they're brought together through a single triage point that Workwell is intending to provide, you've got more of that connection across the piece. Does that help?
Right, Councillor Boyle, okay there? Fine. I've got two more and then I'm going to move on. So Councillor Burden, and I'll take Councillor Hughes.
This sort of comes on from both of the previous questions. In terms of the formation of the board, what exactly is the progress on the formation of the board, with especially LA representation? So having those local authorities on there, I think it's important. And it sort of goes on from what Councillor Boyle's just said. Obviously, we've got our own domestic programmes of moving people into work, and of course, I support the change request by all means. But it's the question of, what is the obligation of the Shaw Trust in Wolverhampton, for that instance, to work with Wolves at Work and to report back to the LA? I feel like it does feel at points as if the LA isn't getting those performance indicators that we can measure ourselves and compare with our Wolves at Work programme or job shopping commentary. I'm sure it's a similar complaint. What is the progress of the establishment of that board and the lines of communication for feedback on progress with the local authorities themselves?
So just Councillor Hughes, your similar question, you'll be taking the vote.
I'm taking up what Councillor Grinsell said. I mean, there's a lack of clarity, isn't there, in terms of structure and governance, and I think that's key to any sort of process like this, especially if there's more coming along. We need to sort of integrate things, and we need to see some clarity as to who's responsible for what and who feeds into what.
Yeah. Okay, Tayson, I think you've got most of that. Do you want to come back on any of it from Councillor Burden or Councillor Hughes?
Just to reassure that we will take these comments forward and feed them into the formation. That formation is still kind of TBC. So it's not operating. The intention is that it won't operate as a programme board per se, but it's meant to be about that kind of wider advisory piece, because there's so much different coming down the line. So Workwell is one of them, for example, but the Thriving to Work, the IPSPC programme, is now being badged or branded as a trailblazer for universal support, which will come down the line, we believe, kind of autumn of this year, and IPSPC will be no longer, but the features of IPS will be drawn up into universal support. So it's quite a changing landscape, and so the decision was taken that instead of having a specific programme board that will monitor, for example, performance, which we can do internally, that there should be an advisory capacity, so that there's much more kind of join up and the input is much more strategic. So that's the intention of the Health, Employment and Labour Participation Group that will be set up, but it's locked into kind of wider governance conversations about what's kind of changing, if that makes sense. So as I've said, there are two reporting lines, the Wellbeing Board and the Skills Board, both of which have local authority representation, but we can certainly seek to make that stronger at the advisory level, so that there's more kind of sight of the programme deliverables and that kind of monitoring.
Okay, councillor Bird, and then that will move on.
Just to register, I haven't understood the word that's been said. You know, as far as I'm concerned, you know, it's all very woolly. We're talking about 8 million quid for 1,570 people, which averages out about £5,000 per person. All I can say is that what I would like to see is when this board is finally agreed, somebody can put it on a piece of paper so I understand it. No disrespect to the lady presenting, but I haven't got a clue what you're talking about.
Okay, I think we're going to move to the decision in essence for you, Tatum. I think you've taken on board what's been said today. So the recommendations are contained at page 23. Approve the attached change request in Appendix 1 supporting ongoing delivery of the DWP delivery phase of the IPSPC services April 23 to March 25 of £7,936,260 for submission to the SAF. Are we all content to go forward with that, recognising the points that have been made? But thank you very much. Thank you. I think that's agreed. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. I now exclude through the press of the public, and according to section 184 of the Local Government Act 1972, the press and the public be excluded from the meeting during the consideration of the following items of business, as they involve the likely disclosure of exempt information related to the business affairs of any particular person, including the authority holding that information. Thank you.